families that homeschool their children. Now listen to this, an independent review. We'll get to who really was behind it. The inquiry into home education was ordered by ministers in January to investigate whether home education is used to conceal child abuse, such as neglect, forced marriage, sexual exploitation, or domestic servitude. Here's a world Fabian society training us all to be servants to the state. They're such hypocrites, aren't they? Sources close to the review have confirmed that its author, this independent review, was the former director of Children's Services at Kent County Council, Graham Badman. How can you dream up these names? Graham Badman is looking favourably at proposals that would require parents to register their children with their council when they are born. See, that's essential. Or when they move to a different local authority. When you register something, you see, it's no longer yours. It's the state's. Campaigners claim the move would fundamentally undermine the responsibility that lies with parents to ensure their child is receiving a good education. Now, who defines what a good education is? A good indoctrination by the state is quite easy to define. And allow the state an unprecedented intrusion into family life. The review has sparked a furious row between home educating families and social services. See, social services won't be happy until they rule the roost across the country, in every country. They can have no other gods before them. That's standard with all government agencies. The government estimates that around 20,000 children are registered with local authorities as receiving home tuition, but the real number could be closer to 50,000 because parents are obligated to inform the authorities only if they withdraw a child from school, not if they have never been to school. So they're going after the whole kit and caboodle, but that's no surprise to listeners to this show. No surprise whatsoever. Now I'll go to the callers, and there's Vince from the UK. I'll take him first. He's long distance. Are you there, Vince?
Oh, hi.
Yes.
Hi, Alan. Yeah, just backtracking slightly. It's just about the culture creation sort of issue. I mean, you say nothing happens by accident. It all comes from the top.
Yeah.
Down, and it's all controlled. I don't know, I have a bit of a I can't, yeah, I do understand what you're saying, like, in terms of, yeah, it's massively controlled. That's obvious. I mean, look at the spot.
I've seen it working in Britain. I've seen people at the top who came from Eton sitting with tweed suits in their 40s, 50s, and 60s decide who would be the top musicians, the top 10, top 20, 40 for the next month. I saw that years ago. I met the big producers who helped do the stuff for the BBC, bringing in the social themes that would go with it.
What I'm trying to get at here is, like, I mean, nothing and everything. I just think it's like, it's not leaving a lot of hope for us, is it? You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly right. It's not meant to leave you hope. In fact, Bertrand Russell says that they would eventually create, during the big change, to allow the change to come through, they'd create a massive apathy amongst the people. And that was published in his own book, you know.
Yeah, but what about, do you really think a band like the Sex Pistols just came down from from the top, that it was...
What they do is, here's what they do.
That the monkeys were manufactured in the 60s, and they're manufacturing everything. But like the Sex Pistols, do you really think they were manufactured?
Oh, yeah, because you got to look at what the image was. And they said themselves, eventually they would push an image of nihilism, hopeless nihilism. And when you get guys screaming and screaming and screaming And you get guys who ultimately OD because they want to die. That's called nihilism, you know.
But don't you think that nihilism is just a reflection of what's happening in the world?
No, that's the biggest nonsense out there. Now there are some groups that will go their own way. They won't get to the top. They become well known because even though their albums aren't pushed that much, because they do so much touring, they will be the occasional group here or there. But the big boys themselves that suddenly come out of nowhere and are put there with their image, believe you me, they're made up on the spot in some studio. They're picked out of lineups and says, you're now a band. Here's your four hits you'll have over the next year, and then you take their cash and you run. That's it.
No, absolutely. But do you really think that every band that exists has been created in that way?
Not every band. What you do when you change the culture from one thing to rap, say, for instance, you put out the first rap artist because the rest of them copy. You see? That becomes the new thing. They can smell it in the wind. This is to be successful. So a whole bunch of small ones come up and do their own thing, and they basically copy. Just like when they brought out rock, people copied the ones that were given to them to emulate. So there's lots and lots of ones below them.
Rock, that it's symbolic of a Masonic thing, like a symbol. But isn't rock just from rock and roll? Rock and roll just comes from black people playing.
Well, you start off with pop. Pop is the father. You see, and then rock is the foundation. Rock is the foundation for it. And then you went into, and in the rock, in the old legends, you always have the iron you have the sword is in the rock, King Arthur.
Yeah.
Understand?
You like rock music.
What's that got to do with it? I played lots of rock music. But you pull the sword out of the stone, and then from there on you go into heavy metal, which is a sword, and from there on you just go down and down until you have rap, that you wrap it up. That's the bottom level. It's wrapped up.
Saying this stuff before. I understand what you're saying. I'm not convinced, but
and literally, when you look at the albums, look at so many of the albums. Not that the youngsters who pose know what they're doing; they're told how they stand. And you'll see all of them as Sonic stances, the flashing of the. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there and listen to the rest of the show. And thanks a lot for listening to me.
Okay. And I remember talking to Jerry Marsden and different people who started off very early on, before I was up and going. And these guys really were real genuine guys. They sang nice songs. It was traditional. It was acceptable with all these groups. And they worked their way up in the clubs, and they got a few hits and so on. And Jerry said the same thing. He said, since these pros came in with their agenda, he says it's just plummeted, and the culture went downhill. Everybody then knew that what was going on, you know. And that's how it really is. And there's Derek from New Hampshire there. There, Derek.
Hi, Alan.
Yes.
This is a great show. I'm going to have to remember, was it the 11th you said? Yeah, yes. I have to burn this and pass it around to my half-dead, half-awake family who can't seem to break out of that. The music, they need the music still. They need the movies. Mm-hmm. And it's to go back to Amy Winehouse. I mean, even the name Winehouse, and she's singing about rehab.
That's right, and she's always drunk, and on when you see her on a little Much music stuff, and
yeah, and I noticed too, she brought back the beehive hairdo.
Yeah,
and and I can bring it around to the schooling and everything, because my mate, the mother of my children, she's real into Amy Winehouse. She thinks it's good music and liberating and everything, but she also thinks it's nice and whatnot to go out and have a good time, drink some alcohol, and it's like she's entitled to it,
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm having a serious, not all out war, but I'm just trying to discuss taking my child out of school.
Yeah.
Because I pick him up. He's in first grade. I pick him up. He's in a line. He's not allowed to walk out of the line. If he does, he gets reprimanded.
Yep.
And it's just a shame. We have a daughter too, so I'm gonna try and keep her out from getting in there. But it's a real shame to have to go through this at home.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you have no choice because the indoctrination at school, like Russell and others have said, is so perfect